Hello, welcome to Introduction to Phonic Faces, Visualizing Sound. Problem. My grandson was failing kindergarten. He didn't understand and couldn't learn the alphabet. He was showing classic symptoms of dyslexia, poor phonemic awareness, no letter sound association despite lots of teaching, letter reversals, family history, right brain strengths in art and athletics, poor rapid naming skills, and corpus callosum deficit verified at age 9. So in kindergarten, he also had a talented art designation because he'd been drawing since he was 2. And this is an example of his drawing of his little brother learning to walk that he drew as a kindergartner. So the question became, how could a child so symbolic with visual images be so unable to make sense of visual letters? Aren't they visual symbols too? Well, a clue became very apparent. He intently looked at pictures associated with letters anytime you asked him what the letter sound was. And the problem is that the meaning and the sounds aren't in these pictures. If you look at the letter A is for apple, but apples don't say ah. B is for bear, but bears say grrr. They don't say buh. Cats say meow, not k. Dogs say woof, not duh. He'd never heard a dog say duh or a cat say k. And fish don't say f. So basically the association between the letters and the words that they put on alphabet boards only makes sense if you have phonemic awareness. But by definition, children with dyslexia don't have phonemic awareness and can't acquire phonemic awareness very easily. Because phonemic awareness basically means that when you say C is for cat, you really mean it's for the word cat. It requires you to separate the meaning away from the picture. So if I say A is for apple, I don't really mean it's an apple, I mean it's the word apple. So you have to take the meaning of apple away from the word, and then basically you have to ignore any sound, like a crunching sound that an apple might make, because the sound is associated with the word or the first sound in the word. And that's what phonemic awareness is. Okay. The alphabet also works funny visually compared to any other symbols in the child's experience. So cat backwards says tack. And so the sound sequence or the letter sequence makes a big difference. But there aren't any other words or there aren't any other experiences in life where this is true. Whether the cat is facing forwards or backwards, it's still a cat. Whether the chairs are facing right or left, they're still chairs. But if letters are facing right or left, they are different letters with different sounds associated with them. A shirt looks like a shirt. It looks like something that you would put on the top of your body. Its function fits the form, but a letter gives us no clue to the meaning. Or does it? Why rote memorization doesn't work. If you look at the left-hand drawing, you've got cognitive structure where the child has phonemic awareness. So you see the letter C, and it's associated with the phoneme k. A is associated with the phoneme a, and t is associated with the phoneme t. So when you say the three phonemes k, a, t, what you hear is a word, and the word is cat. And the word could just be a nonsense word. It could be mug, or it could be blat, or it could be rud. Okay? It doesn't make any difference. It's a word. So when we do nonsense word reading for kids on dibbles, etc., it's seeing if they have this principle that the letters are associated with sounds, the sounds can be spoken as a word, and then the word itself represents something meaningful in the environment if it's a real word and not a nonsense word. So there's a long distance between the printed word cat and the actual concept of a cat. You have to go through phonemic awareness and word structure and word recognition to get to the concept of a cat. On the other hand, if you can't do that, if you can't acquire phonemic awareness and be aware of the fact that words are made up of letters and the letters are represented as sounds, then you're stuck to memorization. And so I would have to say, I would have to memorize that every time I see a C, then you say the k, and every time I see an A, you say a, and every time I say a T, you say t. And then the teacher tells you, okay, put it together. Ka-a-ta. And she said, what word is that? Well, you can't get to the word because you don't have a conceptual structure like the kids on the left who have phonemic awareness, concept of wordness, and then the concept of a cat. So the child will say k-at, and the teacher will say it faster. Ka-ata, will say it faster. Ka-ata, 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 ka-ata. She said, what word do you have? And you don't have anything because you have three sounds, three memorized sounds, and you don't have the conceptual structure that you need in order to take that next step and go from ka-ata into cat into the concept of a cat. It's like having a picture of a dog and a cat and a duck, and you say, what sound does the dog make? Woof. What sound does the cat make? Meow. What sound does the duck make? Quack. Say it faster. Woof, meow, quack. Say it faster. Woof, meow, quack. Woof, meow, quack. Woof, woof, meow, quack. You can say it as fast as you want to. It's not going to be, never going to be anything but three different objects making three different sounds. So, very different conceptual structures. So, once I truly understood the problem, we trashed the alphabet pictures and we started over with a new set of pictures that more directly pictured the principle of letter-sound association. So, as in using my background as a speech pathologist, we drew different pictures based on speech cues. So when you look at the letter B, the first thing that we know is that it's made with the lips. And you stop the sound or the voicing coming through the mouth by putting your lips together. So the line on the B means to stop the sound with your lips, and then you bounce the bottom lip open. B, b, b. And the letter actually does look like what your mouth is supposed to do. Stop the sound by closing your mouth and then bouncing the bottom lip, b, b, to make a sound. So when I showed that to my grandson, it's like, oh, okay. And he relatively quickly learned the sound. And this became a phonic face. You can see the capital letter B with both lips represented there, and the lowercase being the bottom lip. So that became our little phonic face for B. M really does look like the Cupid's bow on your lip. And so we put the M on his lip, and you make the sound. The name of the characters, Emmet, tells you the letter name, M. Letter M is in Emmet's name, and Emmet makes the sound. The T really does look like a tongue tapping right behind the teeth. T, t, t. And so if you see the phonic face of Tina, again the Tina of her name gives you the letter name. The sound t, t is made by touching your tongue right behind your teeth at that alveolar ridge. T, t. And again, it's a stop sound. You stop the air with your tongue, t, and then release it. T, t. So just like the B had a stop sound in it, the letter T also does. The H is the huffing sound, like you're running. The F makes the f sound. You bite your lip, and then you blow some air. F, f, f. So you almost stop the sound with a straight line, but it's not a completely straight line. F. You also have that small opening where the air goes through. F, f. Teeth on bottom lip. F. Okay, they became the phonic faces. In this alphabet, the consonants are kids. B for B. D is a drum inside the mouth. So whereas B is the outside, the lip on the outside of the mouth, this time the circle is inside the mouth. And it looks like a drum. And the vertical line looks like a drumstick beating in there. D, 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 duh. It also is a stop sound at that alveolar ridge. Duh, duh. G is a sound that's in the middle of your mouth. It's produced in the middle of your mouth, and the sound is voiced. And so you can feel those G's inside your throat. So if you hold your throat and you feel it, g, 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 that's the G sound. So the big open round part of the letter looks like the middle of your mouth, and the tail goes down your throat and makes that g, g, g sound. J it looks like a puppeteer's mouth. So basically the sound starts up by your nose, so it starts high up by that alveolar ridge, and then you drop your jaw like a puppet's jaw. J, j, j. And if you feel your jaw as you say that letter, j, j, you can feel the movement of the jaw. K is inside the mouth. So the line again represents stopping the sound with your tongue. So you're going to stop the sound inside of your mouth, and then you're going to have this like little mouth coughing sound. K, k, k. And the oblique lines of the K look like that explosive air. K, k. L is another alveolar sound. So you stretch your tongue right behind the teeth again. Oh, oh, oh. We've talked about M as the Cupid's bow on the mouth. N is the nasal sound, so it looks like your nose. P is very similar to B. You stop the sound, but this time it's your top lip that you're going to pop. P, 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 very quietly. What was weird as I was helping Austin figure out the alphabet is how much the letters of the alphabet cooperated with actual sound production. Even the R sound, you have to have your tongue in this odd shape inside of your mouth, and it actually does look like the shape of the letter R. So tongue tip elevated, with the tongue kind of bunched. P we've talked about, and we've talked about. S looks like the snake inside of your mouth. S. T we've talked about. V is very much like an F. You bite your lip, only this time you turn your voice on. V, v, so you can hear that vibration as opposed to the quiet vibration of the f, f sound. W looks like waving lips. Wah, wah, wah. And if you look at his name, W, you can see that the actual shape of the letter does look like two U's or a double U. So you have to do that wah, wah, wah sound. Make your mouth wave. Wah, wah, wah. Y is a yawning sound. Yeah, yeah. Z is a voiced sound. You produce it just like the S sound. S, z, s, z. Your mouth is in exactly the same position, only you turn on your voice. And that's pictured with the B's. The B's are in your throat just like the g, g, g is in your throat. This is another one of those zzz where you can feel the vibrating B's in your throat if you hold your throat. All right, well, we got to, that got us through kindergarten. We learned our letter sounds, and we understood them well. But then we got to first grade, and we started to have to learn some other letters, including things like diphthongs. So CH became, its own face. So you have to see the CH as its own unit and not a kh. So when I'm working with kids and they see a word like, I don't know, church, then they go ch-ha. It's like, no, baby, it's not ch-ha or kh. It's ch-ch. It's this little boy sneezing the H out of his mouth. And this is not s-ha. This one is sh, sh. And he's using his tongue to push the th out of his mouth. F, f. This is Whitney. She's W's sister. So W has the wah 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 movement of his lips, and so does Whitney. But she's curious, and so she asks all of the questions like who, what, where, when, why, whose. So all of those WH question words belong to Whitney. And there are a few letters in the alphabet, consonant letters, that have more than one sound. C has an empty mouth because she doesn't have a sound of her own. She either has to borrow the k sound from Katie or she has to borrow the s sound from Esther. So she can produce either of those sounds, but they're borrowed sounds. The queen, Q, makes the qu sound. In her story, she gets mad and disgusted and frustrated with things, and so she says, oh, qu. So it's that qu sound, and that's usually spelled with a QU that you can see in her hair. And the X is really a x sound. All right, now the vowels. The vowels in phonic faces are differentiated by short vowels versus long vowels, so there are different faces for the short and long vowels. The short vowels are the babies. Baby A cries, ah. You can see that it's the shape of a crying mouth. The baby E, sound is the baby that has his first little tooth and he's drooling and saying, eh. Baby I doesn't like carrots, so she says, eh. And that little tongue coming out, represents the I sound. Baby O gets his throat tested. You can see the uvula hanging down in the back of his mouth. And there's one in this little boy's mouth. So we're going to say, ah, get your throat tested, ah. And baby U is the thinker. She's the smart baby. So she thinks all the time, and she says things like, uh. So those are the short vowels. When we had to learn the long vowels, I was trying to explain to my grandson, well, the a baby also her name is A, the letter A, so she can make her sound A. And he just gave me that strange look on his face like, what are you talking about? And I recognized immediately that we needed more pictures. If I could picture a concept for him, he could catch on to it almost instantly. If I kept trying to explain it to him in words, we were never getting anywhere. So that's when the adults were born. So baby A is sad and she cries, ah. Mother A is happy and says, A. Baby E has his first tooth, but grown-up E has all of his E teeth. Baby I doesn't like carrots, and so she says, Mother I needs to wear eyeglasses because she doesn't eat enough carrots. Baby O says, ah, and gets his throat tested because grown-up O is an operatic singer and needs to sing the perfect O note. Baby U thinks real hard and says, and now the adult can tell you all the answers. So the faces are very similar to each other. The babies and the adults look like each other, and they have the same letters in their mouths, but the sounds are different from each other, but associated with each other. And that makes it relatively easy for the kids to understand the concept of a short vowel versus a long vowel and what those sounds are like. Okay, so it's a lot of cards. So how do I make this manageable? How do I arrange the phonic faces into groups? So the faces are color-coded and into these basic categories: stops, alveolars, noisemakers, movers, diphthongs, and body sounds, and then the vowel sounds. So let's go through some of these. Remember, the stop sounds are when you do something like you close your lips and stop the sound completely when you're producing it, and then release the sound. Buh, buh. And you can see the line representing stopping, and then the curve representing the lip movement. C is in this category because she can make the k sound. So you stop the sound inside your mouth and release it. G is a stop as well. G, g. You use the tongue to stop the sound inside your mouth and then release it. So K and G are pairs. They're both made in the same place. One of them is voiceless and one of them, the G, is voiced. K, k is, again, the cognate pair of the k sound. And then P, stop the air in your mouth with your lips and then pop it open with the P. All right, now there are other stops that, as we will see as we go through these, but I limited it to 5 cards per color, or yeah, 5 cards per color basically, or per category. So the next category are the alveolars. The alveolar is that little space pictured here. So it's behind the teeth and it's up very, it's this ridge. If you feel with your tongue, you can feel this sort of rough area right before the palate and right behind, immediately behind the teeth. And you can see the tongue touching that spot. So for T, D, L's, and N's, the tongue actually touches that spot. T, D, L, N. And for S and Z, your tongue drops down just a little bit lower than that spot. So it allows the air to go through, but your tongue goes right below that alveolar ridge and causes friction when it has a little narrow opening where the air can pass between the tongue and the alveolar ridge for S and Z. Okay, so those alveolar sounds are going to be D, D, L, S, T, T, and Z. So S and Z are the same, except that S is voiceless and Z is voicing. D and T are the same. T, D, T, D. Both of them tap that alveolar ridge, but T is voiceless and D has voice. All right, the next group are the noise makers. These are sounds that, make some noise. So you're biting your lip and passing that quiet air. Mm, mm, v. So this is the same as F, except F is voiceless and V is voiced. F, v, f, v. For both of those, you're biting your lip a little bit. And then ung, ung, ung. Song, sung. Okay, next one are movers. This means that your mouth is going to have to move to produce these sounds. R, R, R. We start as an ah and end up with an R, R. So this is Arlene. This is twin sister Erlene. Er, er, er. Or, or. This is the consonant R, 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 as opposed to r, consonant r colored vowel, and w, w, w. So these movers kind of go together in another category. Diphthongs. We have the Whitney, the W's twin sister, w, ch, sh, th. And when there's 2 boys, then you end up with the voiced pair. Th. So with is quiet, both is quiet, these, those, they, them are noisy, think is quiet, thank is quiet. So voice and voiceless th. And then we have a category of these sort of body sounds. From running. J, j, the puppet jaw. Qua, qua, qua. Oh, qua. Yeah, yeah. And ks, ks. All right, so those are the colors of the phonic faces. And this is the way that I lay them out on the table so that I can see the letters and get to the ones that I want quickly without taking up a lot of space on a table. Across the bottom of the table, I'm going to place the vowels. So we're going to look at short and long vowels again. Here comes Y. There's a consonant Y. If you look over under the body sounds, yeah, yeah, that's the consonant Y. We also have the baby Y. Baby Y is giggly. Because there are many words, funny, silly, puppy, busy, easy, dozens and dozens and dozens of words that end in the E sound, but we chose in our spelling system to make E at the end of the word silent. When you see the E at the end of the word, the E is silent, but it makes the vowel long. Then we needed a letter to represent the actual E sound. Therefore, we use Y not only as a consonant, but also as a vowel. So this is the giggly baby, E-E-E. The giggly baby also can say the I sound as in sky, Y, Skype, type, okay, either inside the word or at the end of the word. Baby U says because she thinks too hard, and the adult can tell you the answer. Baby O gets his throat tested, and now it can make the perfect O operatic note. Baby I doesn't like carrots. She says yeah. Now the adult has to wear eyeglasses. Baby E has his first tooth and says eh. And now Mr. E has all of his teeth. And baby A is unhappy and cries ah. And the adult is happy and says hey, yay, hey. All right, so that's how I lay out my vowels into these long and short vowel sequences. And then the vowel diphthongs, she has a roach on her nose and she goes, like in book or look, She has a butterfly on her head, and so the double O for these says, ooh, ooh, like something's cool. Ow, O-W and O-U say, ow, she has the bump on his head, ow, and you can see the lips starting out round and then ending up with that sort of W waving pattern, ow, ow. So he has an element of W in there. Same with aw, aw, aw. He's bashful. Aw, aw. And oi, oi. He has a little piggy mask on, and he says oi, oi, oi. So those are the phonic faces, and this is the way that I lay them out for usage. Okay, so how do we go about teaching letter sounds? Well, phonic faces are a tool. They're a very useful tool for lots of kids, not just kids who have dyslexia, but any younger children, older children, anybody that benefits from visuals. And if you need them, then you really need them. So they're a tool. They provide children another way to discover letters and letter sound relationships. There's our toolbox of letter sound relationships. They provide pictures of how letters tell your mouth what to say. As tools, they can be integrated into the program you're already using in your classroom. Just show the Phonic Faces card where you would show another alphabet card. So they work great in pre-K, kindergarten, first grade classrooms because 25 to 35% of your kids are going to need a visualization of sounds, and they, are entertaining and don't harm children who like them and benefit from them but don't absolutely need them. So basically, if you use them with the whole class, everybody is benefiting. Or you can follow the lesson plans in the manual that provide specific ideas and activities. So you can either use your own activities, and these are a tool that you add while you're explaining letter sounds just like you would with anything else. Or you can use the Phonic Faces manual and follow those activities, or combine elements of both. So they're very flexible. They're like a tool. There's not one and only one way of using these. So this is just an example of some of the classrooms and have setups of Phonic Faces, etc. So these are the books, the Phonic Faces books. On the right, you can see that they've colored pictures of the phonic faces using some of the phonic faces worksheets. And they hang those around the room for the kids, and then the teacher's using a card to explain the letter G, G, G. Okay, in the manual you can see that the color coding is also coordinated through some of the themes. Um, so if you look at the first theme, then it's going to be the P sound, the B sound. Those are some of those stops. Katie's K sound, okay, the G sound. So we've got, a lot of those sounds that were in that first group of stop plosives, and we have several vowels in that first unit. And that first unit has to do with getting to know me. What do I look like? What am I good at? How do I act? What are moods and emotions? How do I take care of myself? What is my body and my body parts? And what are my senses? So these are themes that are common to most early childhood classrooms. So the books can be used just within, as a supplement to whatever you're already doing in your lesson plans, or they can be their own theme. So you don't have to teach them in this order. This is just, you can teach the letter sounds in alphabetical order if you so choose. So these are just one way of organizing the ideas. So let's go with one of the themes, one of the books from this theme, the Gigi theme. So the Gigi book is about body parts. You can see that it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th book in the series in this particular little unit. We introduced P's and B's because they're so visible on the face. You can see them right away. Kids can see and feel making a P and a B sound. The little cough inside your mouth is another fairly easy one for the children to, see how the letter and sound relationships work. Then we introduce some vowels so that we can start making some words. So we introduce a, and I. And then G is again one of those g, g fun sounds because you can feel the G going down your throat. All right, and when you look at the theme of the book, the concepts explored in the G book, which is Gigi's Big Gulp, that explores body parts, drink, and green, and answers the question, well, what is my body or what are my body parts? Okay, so here's the cover of the book. The Phonic Faces books are both storybooks and alphabet books. They're designed to teach phonemic awareness and letter sounds as a natural part of reading the story. I couldn't find books that, allowed me to emphasize both meaning and form. So I could either find alphabet books where you just look at a bunch of words that start with that letter, or I could find storybooks that didn't have very many examples of any particular letter. So I just ended up writing them. So this is the little story. Gigi gulped 3 small green G's. So I've got my character, Gigi, and one day she has this drink and she decides to gulp these G's. So we can talk about Gigi and we can talk about, what is she doing and what seems to be in the cup and what color is it. And then we can look at the print and we can start talking about G's. Does anybody see any G's? Do you see a capital G? How many lowercase g's do you see? Do you see any G's at the beginning of words? How many? How many G's do you see in the middles of words? Do you see any G's at the ends of words? What's a letter? What's a word? Okay, so we have lots of opportunities to talk about the letter G and then the words that the G's are embedded into. The G's went down her gullet. So again, we have some pretty silly words for the kids that they like to play with silly words that they've never heard before. And everybody now needs to be just like Gigi, and you need to swallow your G so everybody feels their throat g, g, g. And then you can point to the letters. Okay, let's make the sounds together. G, g, g. How many does she have in her throat? 1, 2, 3. So let's make 3 g sounds. G, 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 while she's swallowing those G's. Uh-oh, one goes to her fingertip. So you can see that she only has two in her throat. And let's follow where the G traveled. The G traveled all the way to her fingertip. And you can see it in the tip of her finger. So those G's go right down her throat and to someplace on GG. So now we can look at the text. Okay, one goes to her fingertip. How many G's do you see? Who can find the G's? How many G's do we have at the beginning of words? How many G's do we have in the middle of words? Do you see any at the ends of words? All right, then we say, page 5, she grabs it and tries to pull it. Uh-oh, she doesn't want that G in her finger. Everybody try to pull that G out of your finger. Yikes, how'd that G get in there? You have fun with it. You play with it. You count how many G's she has in her mouth now. You know, where are the G's in the words. All right, then we move on to page 6. One goes up to her head. So you can see, you can trace the G that used to be in her throat, and now it's gone up to her head. You can see the one in her fingertip, and you can see that the second one went up to her head. Go away, Gigi said. So we can talk about speech bubbles and make children aware that this, that when people are talking in a book, that it can be shown by these speech bubbles. And you can see the word go away. What do you see, a G up there? Is there a capital G or a lowercase g? Where did the G go? It landed up right between her eyes. Oh no, it's going to make her eyes go crossed. Look at her eyes, they're crossed. Go away, Gigi said. How many capital G's do you see? How many lowercase g's do you see? Do you see any in the middle of the words? Beginning of sentence, middle of the sentence. So you have lots of opportunities to teach these things. One goes down her leg until it found her great big toe. And then there's 3 or 4 more pages to the little story. But that's how we read the books. We talk about meaning and have fun with these silly G's that Gigi is drinking, and then we also pay a lot of attention to phonemic awareness and letter awareness. By the way, phonemic awareness, the research shows, is best taught using print. That print really helps children think about where they're hearing sounds and if they hear sounds. And so, again, if the kids are just learning, you can feel your throat g, g, g. As you say the word goes, do you hear a letter B or a letter G? The B sound or the G sound? So you can help the children focus on hearing those sounds. Okay, these are just the instructions that we just sort of talked about. Have fun with the story as you read it. Would you drink green G's? What would they taste like? How would the letter G make your finger feel? Where will the next G go? Talk about how you would feel with the sound in your throat and help the children make the G sound each time they see the G in the story. Point to the words. Hold your throat to feel the G's as you see the words. Ask children to find letter G's on the page. Okay. Then we have some worksheets and things that the kids can do. They can color their own phonic face. So we had the bigger versions of them in that picture where you could, hang those bigger versions of the pictures for the children to look at. But they also can get these small pictures where they can color their own phonic face. Talk about the G's in their mouth and how to make the letter G. By the way, on the letter G you can see a J in the ponytail, and that's because sometimes you can say your G making the J sound like giant or gem or anyway, I'll think a giraffe. Okay, so it gives them alternative letters to sometimes try if the G, G, G sound doesn't work. And you can have the child glue their personal copy of the G inside of a journal or an alphabet book. Okay. Here's another activity where for the lowercase g, another one of the worksheets for the lowercase g, the kids can just see the different ways that G's might be written in print. This kind of sort of a G that looks like almost like an 8, is common in many print type fonts. And so that just shows children different ways that the G might be produced. In the capital on the right, you can see the worksheet page for the capital, and it has words that start with the letter G. Grapes, gloves, gas, gum. Okay, and here are some letter sound phonemic awareness kinds of worksheets. So you're supposed to, Gigi has this glass with the G's in it, say the words that go with each picture. If you hear the G sound at the beginning of the word, then put a line under the picture or color pictures that have the g sound. Gum, grapes, girl, not snowman, gate, gas, so everybody but snowman. All right, let's see. These are just words like gate, bell, pear, and kite, and you're supposed to pick which phonic face completes each word or goes at the beginning of each word. And the visualization of the phonic face, so the kids, if you just had letters B's and K's and G's, the kids would have to remember and already know that first sound. With the phonic face, you can test them out. You can say what BJ says, so you can look at his mouth and go ba ba ba. Is that a bait? No. Ba ba ba. Is that a bell? Yes. So you can try to do this activity even as you're still learning the letter sounds, so it makes it more possible to become aware of those things. And very similarly, you have to figure out which letter to add to the face so that you can make the word ball and goose, etc. All right. Writing is the opposite of reading. So while we're learning to read the letters of the alphabet, you also have to learn to write them. So the phonic faces pages help the children do this. So you can say, when you look at the letter G, step 1, make the open mouth. So you look inside Gigi's mouth, and it has a nice big opening in there. It shows that your mouth has a big space in there that you're going to use to make the letter. So you make that open mouth, and now make the sound that goes down Gigi's throat. Or make the line to show you that the sound is going to go down Gigi's throat. And now put those two together. The open mouth inside, g, g. You have to open your mouth a little bit to make that g sound. You can't keep your mouth closed. And then you draw the tail that goes down her throat to show that you're going to have that sound going down her throat. G, g, g. Okay, and then the practice lines. First, you just have to put your crayon or your pencil in between the letters and draw the shape. Then you have to follow the dotted lines. On the next line, you're given half of the letter to copy, and then you have to complete it yourself. And then finally, on the last line, you create the complete letter by yourself, given the model. Second worksheet is a little more difficult. So this one is based on the story. So it says, write a G to show where Gigi's G goes. So you have a picture to color, and you can put in your own G, and then it gives you examples of what the capital and lowercase g's look like, and you write those. And then it says, the G went down her leg, and you would have to copy that word leg, or you can write your own word, whatever you want to write. So it has more opportunities for developmental spelling and putting it in the context of a story, a sentence story, and not just practicing the letters themselves. All right, now thematic activities. When you're teaching something difficult, like a letter or a sound, having places during the day where you can suitcase that knowledge that you acquired from the storybook reading throughout the day gives the children opportunities to use it in lots of different ways. So one way would be to have a fun activity where you trace on the paper on the floor, one child volunteers, and you trace around the child's body. And now every child can have an opportunity to either tape a pre-cut letter G, green letter G if you want to, or to use a marker and put a letter G where they want their G to go. So each child gets to trace a place where their letter G goes down the body. And so you can have some in the head and some in the hair and some in the fingers and some in the toes and some on the tummy, etc., etc. So it's a way to again reinforce the theme of body parts and at the same time practice those letter G's in lots of different ways. You can make a collage using the words that start with a G. So you can help children listen when I say this word glue, glue. Am I making the g sound or the p sound or the d sound? So you can have pictures that do go on the collage and pictures that don't go on the collage, and the children have to make decisions about whether it makes the G sound or not. Read an age-appropriate illustrated book containing words that begin with G. So we read the Phonic Faces book where we had lots of practice finding the G's, and now we can look at other books and see if we can find G's in those books. First talk about the story on each page and then point out words or have the children help you find words that begin with letter G. Hold your throat to feel the G's as you say the word with the exaggerated first sound. Goat starts with G, or gorilla starts with G. Ask children to find letter G's on the page. Tell you what sound they make. All right. Things that are more directly explicit, phonemic awareness activities. This is a little Phonic Faces train that the letters can fit on. And so we can show a picture of a word beginning with G, such as gum. And I can ask the children with two Phonic Faces, which sound do you hear at the beginning? Do you hear the S sound or do you hear the G sound? And then you can tell them exactly what, if they choose the S, and then you say, okay, let's put it at the front of the train. Uh-oh, now it tells my mouth to say sun, sun. But that's not what we have up here. We have, or some. That's not what we have up here. We have gum, gum. So listen again, g, g, g. You can put sound sequences on the board, so you can, spell out the word. You can, do you can move the G to the end of the word. And this time you'll be listening for a word like bug. Where do you hear the word where do you hear the G sound in the word bug? Is it at the beginning or is it at the end of the word? So you can play all kinds of phonemic awareness games using the little train. You can also do rhyme. So we have gun, g-un, gun. Let's make the sounds. G-g-n, gun. This is sound blending. So we've done our sound blending. We've learned that the word is gun. And now we're going to do some rhyming words. So we can talk about how we only need to change the word on the engine, or the sound on the engine. If we change the sound on the engine and leave the end of the word the same, we're going to come up with some rhyming words. So let's try that. We've got letter R. What sound does R make? R. All right, so let's try it out. Un. Un. Who can hear the word? Run. What was this word? Gun. Run. Gun. Run. Gun. Those words are the same at the end, but they change the first sound. Those words rhyme. Let's try this one. There's the letter S. S, un. S, un. What word is that? If they can't hear it, then I draw two pictures, a picture of the sun and a picture of a moon. All right, which one are you hearing? Is my mouth saying sun or is my mouth saying moon? And then you can again go through the rhyming. Run, sun, gun, run, sun. Do the last two pictures change? No, rhyming words means the first sound changes and then fun. Okay, so lots of, opportunities to play with rhyming with phonic phrases. All right, there are also morphophonic words. My grandson couldn't learn sight words either, and so I quickly learned that if I could overlap the picture of the meaning with the letters, that he could put them in visual memory at the same time. So when you look at the word, okay, game, he couldn't get a picture of his in his head of how those letters looked like a game. And so he couldn't get it to stick in visual memory because like most dyslexics, he's a visual thinker. So when the word doesn't look like its meaning, it's hard to remember. And if you don't have phonemic awareness, then it's hard to try to figure out by the letter sounds what the word might say. But if I could get in visual memory the picture of a word that begins with the g sound and it looked like a game, he could put that in visual memory and he would remember his words. We could learn his 15 words in 15 minutes like everybody else. Okay, and they would, once they were learned, they stick in visual memory just like anybody else's words stick in visual memory. So this would be like garden. You can see that the R kind of looks like a plant, and the watering can looks like an N, the shape of an N. So the shapes of the letters and the meaning of the pictures overlap each other, and you basically have the kids look at the word. Okay, let's look at the word. Let's look at her mouth. What's the first sound in her mouth? G, g, g. All right, that's the sound that goes down her throat. So we know it's going to start with the g sound. And now let's look. We've got gar, gar. That's a flower with a leaf. And then din, din. It's a flower being watered. Garden. Then I'll cover the picture and I'll tell them to look at the word up above, just in the printed word. What letter does it start with? Whose mouth is it in? G, g, g. What does the AR look like? It looks like a flower and a leaf. And what does the din look like? It looks like a flower getting watered. So basically, get him to put into words or conceptualize what pictures are in that word, garden, to get it into visual memory. Gave. Any of the words that are Dolch words, they don't have a lot of meaning. Basically, a lot of them are going to be time markers. So you've got the A with the arrow pointing backwards. It means it already happened. And she has a V like a little bowl, and she already gave him some popcorn. So when you look at that picture, first you look at the first letter, G, G, G. The letter G is going to make that sound that goes down your throat, and then you can see a time marker telling me it already happened. The V looks like a bowl, and she already gave some popcorn to little E kid. Get, on the other hand, is a future tense, so the arrow is pointing the other direction, and you can see her trying to get the T. Get, get. Gift, okay? So you look at the first letter, and it's the G, 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 G. Then you can see the I is part of the bow, and the F and the T are part of the gift, gift, gift. So you try to get the kids again to visualize these cues to help them remember. It's mnemonics, it's basically, using something in the shapes of the pictures to help them remember what the words are. The cards can be covered so that just the black and white word is showing. So I show the black and white word to the kids, and it's like, okay, so what is this word? And if they don't get it, I start giving it a hint. Oh, I see that I looks like part of a bow. And then usually that's enough to pull up the picture, and they'll say gift. Okay, girl. So she's doing girly things. Give. That was the opposite of gave. Okay, so give is in the present tense. She's giving it to him right now, the same bowl of popcorn. Gave is the word that we saw where the A turned into a clock pointing backwards. Glass, glass, glasses. The mouse is prominent in these words because the mouse is in a lot of words that have position in them. So she's pushing him away. Go, go. This is the word goat. The O and the A is a phonics pattern. Two vowels together make a long O sound, so those two vowels are together on the word. So you see that as a single unit, goat. Here's the mouse again. This time the clock is going around a continuous circle because he's going right now. It's happening right now. Good. Gorilla. Got, past tense word. So you had get, which was the future tense. Clock was pointing to the future. Now it's pointing to the past. Got. Grapes. Grass. Green. Grow. So those are just some examples of picturing words that teach both phonemic awareness, the letter is at the beginning of the word, alphabet recognition, and then helps them internalize sight words. Okay, theme unit, on to art and continue the theme. So this is just an example of making a hand tree with green apples in it. So she had green G's, and now we can put green apples or even green G's on our hand trees if we want to. Music. Hokey Pokey teaches body parts. So you put your left leg in, your left leg out, and you can start adding, and you shake it all about, or you shake your green G's out. There's a letter G song, there's a goat song, there's a groovy green grape, so there's a lot of, g, g, g songs that help reinforce that letter sound. Snack time. Make gingerbread GGs. Let your child identify the body parts on their cookies by putting G's on their toes or on their hands or any of those kinds of things with frosting. They're not going to make a good G, but at least they can put a little green glob and talk about the G where they put their G on their gingerbread cookie. That reinforces both the theme of the story and the letter G's. And in the play center, have things that reinforce body parts as well as anything green that you want to play with. And gross motor. Talk about body parts that you must use in order to do some of the activities in the gross motor center. Okay, so those are an example of a thematic unit, or the use of phonic faces with the younger kids, trying to establish alphabet knowledge, phonemic awareness, letter sound knowledge, sound blending, beginning spelling, all of those emerging skills, as well as storybook reading for content and form, and reinforcing the theme throughout the day. But phonic faces also grow up and help with increasing school demands. So I've worked with kids all the way from pre-K through adulthood who have reading difficulties, and we've used phonic faces very successfully. Okay, so as you start to, start in first grade and on up through the grade levels, you start having these very confusing concepts like, what is a short vowel? Letter R must make 100 different sounds, and I don't get it. One time it's making this sound, and then it makes that sound. I don't get it. What does the silent E do in a consonant? Do to the consonant? And over, I've just heard, if I could see what you're talking about, I could get it. This comment, what does the silent E do to the consonant? That came from a Harvard professor who was a dyslexic, who struggled with reading his entire life and said even as an adult professor he still had poor reading skills. And unfortunately his daughter was showing some of the same characteristics. So he had actually come to my class to talk about research design and writing research papers, and we later got into this conversation about dyslexia and reading problems. So, he was saying that, his daughter was showing all these symptoms, and, he was pretty distressed about this. And so I said, well, let's go to dinner and we'll talk about phonic faces. So I was showing him how to use the phonic faces and how to lay out the patterns of phonic rules, and we laid out the phonic faces for a silent E. So it must have been something like gate, Gate, or yeah, something like that. And so I, let's say it was, well, anyway, so I laid it out and I said, so when you're doing this with her, you lay out GATE, or trying to think of what LATE. Okay, so lay out your letters LATE. And when you get to the E, that's Mr. E. He doesn't like babies, and so he starts fussing and says, I don't like that baby A in my word. She cries, get her out, get her out. And the adult comes in and makes the long A sound. So I was explaining this to him. And he looked at it for a while and he said, well, I understand what it does to the vowel, but what does it do to the T? And I said, well, what do you mean, what does it do to the T? And he said, well, the T right before the E, what does the silent E do to that? And I said, well, look at the letters. I didn't switch out anything. The only letter I switched out was the vowel. That's the only letter that's affected. The T stays a T. And he looked at me and he said, years of Orton Gillingham, years of phonics instruction, and I never understood what it did to that consonant. And now you're showing me in 2 seconds that it does nothing to the consonant. Where were you when I was a kid? So anyway, I've had, innumerable experiences like that with adults who were dyslexic and struggled to learn these principles. They needed to see it. Okay, so anyway, so what are some of these patterns? The CVC closed syllable rule is the short vowel pattern. When a vowel is closed in by consonants on both sides, the vowel is usually short unless silent E applies. So if you were to look at words like bat, met, pig, dog, cup, it's going to be short a, short e, short I, and All right, so for a lot of kids with reading problems, it just sounds like blah, 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 and they don't understand what you're talking about. What is a vowel? What is consonants closed in by consonants? What is short? Okay, what is silent E? They're just sitting there with all these abstractions being told to them, but they don't understand it. But with phonic faces, you can just easily show it. Okay, consonants are the kids. And baby A is a short vowel. Babies are short. And so we let them make these, we let their sounds be the short vowel sounds because babies are short people. All right, and when you look at the baby, she can't run away because the B can catch her if she tries to run left, and the T can catch her if she tries to run right. So when there are kids, phonic face consonants on both sides to take care of the baby is safe and usually stays and makes its sound. So this is a short vowel pattern. So it's real easy to show kids that the baby gets to stay because the consonants are taking care of her. And now all that abstraction about what is a vowel, well, you can see she's a vowel. She's purple. She's closed in by consonants. The kids are the consonants. They're older. And they're on both sides of her. She can't run left, she can't run right. It's just so visual and so obvious that the kids can understand the principle very quickly. And so now you use those sounds. You put your mouth in the same shape as the letters. B-at, b-at. What word am I saying? If the kids can't hear it, then you stretch it. Bat. Bat, bat. If they still can't hear it, then you give them 2 pictures. Is my mouth saying dog or is my mouth saying bat? Let's try it again. And if they say my mouth is saying dog, then it's like, okay, let's say the d sound. Okay, now let's say the b sound. B-at. At. Is your mouth going duh like the picture, like the letter D? No, it's going buh. Look at your lip. You can look at your lip and you can see your lip, or you can feel your lip bouncing. At bat. You're saying bat. So anyway, it gives you all of these visual ways of giving the kids cues and feedback. Okay, there's the short vowel pattern we just talked about. This is a long vowel pattern, okay? The long double vowel pattern. So you can show them, okay, now I can change my spelling. Look, you can move over the letters on the train and put the two O's together, the two vowels together. So I've got baby O and baby A. Now, it looks like my mouth is supposed to go b-ah-at, but which is what the kids will try to do. But I can pull out my Phonic Faces story and I can say, uh-oh, when two babies are alone together, they could run away and get hurt. The grown-up for the first baby comes in and takes care of both of them. Because we don't have enough kids. There isn't a kid in the middle there, so the babies could run away. They could get away because, you know, there's only one on the left and one on the right. There's nobody in the middle to try to catch those babies, and they could run away. So the O comes in and takes care of both of them. And so you make the grown-up O sound, boat, boat. So they can see that there are two vowels in the word, but only the first one's grown-up gets to make the sound. So that's this double vowel rule that we just talked about. Again, the teachers will tell them the double vowel rule if a syllable or one syllable word has two vowels, the first vowel usually stands for the long sound and the second vowel is silent. These are called the vowel teams. The saying, when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, is very often used. And again, it's just words, blah, 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 trying to show them with visual letters of the alphabet, but the letters aren't visual. The letters are auditory. They represent auditory phonemic awareness. What's visual is mouth positions, seeing that when I'm talking about vowels, I'm talking about babies. These are the sounds that their mouth positions are in. You can see that there's two babies. Those two babies shouldn't be left alone because they're babies. And so I'm going to have to bring in a grown-up or a long vowel sound. So let's choose the sound of the first baby. And that grown-up comes in and takes care of both of them. And now my word is b-oat. Okay, this is just another example. There's the short A sound, p-an, p-an. If I'll catch her, she'll run this way. I'll catch her if she runs that way. So either way, she can't get away because the kids are there to catch her. And when I say my word, then p-an, I should hear pan. On a long vowel sound, the kids will try to go p-a-il. Or pa-a-in, pa-a-in. And it's like, no, 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 look, there's two babies. They could run away. There's nobody to catch them in the middle, so the grown-up has to come in the middle and catch them. A, pa-ain. Okay, pattern for long vowel silent E, the silent E rule. When a syllable ends with a silent E, the silent E is a signal that the vowel in front is long. This is often called the magic E or the bossy E. It's kind of like, well, you'd have to know what a long vowel is. You would have to know, what you're talking about in terms of the syllable ending in silent E, etc. Make, meet, kite, rope, use. So basically the E doesn't make any sound at all, but it affects the vowel sound in the middle of the word. And this is where the PhD Harvard professor had never understood that it doesn't affect the letter directly in front of it. It only affects only the vowel of the letter, because they just all look like letters. They don't look like vowels versus consonants. They just look like letters. So the Phonic Faces silent E story. Mr. E doesn't like babies and complains when they're in his words. The adult comes in to protect the baby and silences Mr. E by zipping his mouth shut. So now we lay out the cards. We have ac, E. Uh-oh. Mr. E doesn't like babies, and so we have to silence him. Mr. E goes, I don't like babies. Look at that baby in my word. She's crying, ah, ah, ah. She's, making all kinds of noise. I just can't stand babies. And I look at the kids and I say, would your mama let Mr. E fuss at you like that? And they go, no. It's like, no, of course not. So mom's going to come in and she's going to say, Mr. E, you be silent. And I let them put the zipper on his mouth, so they get to have fun putting the zipper on Mr. E's mouth and silencing him. But you have to be a grown-up to do that. A baby can't do that. So the grown-up has to come in and silence Mr. E. Silence Mr. E. Okay, so this is just another example. Mad. Add. Does the baby stay? Yes, because there's kids protecting her and keeping her safe. But now let's look at this one. We've got mad and then an E. And he looks grumpy. Oh no, there's a baby in my word. I don't like babies. They cry, they spit up carrots. I can't stand babies. Would your mom let him do that to you? No, mom's going to come in and she's going to say, Mr. E, you be silent. But then she has to make the sound. Made. Okay. With my grandson, if they had, their own sound, they needed their own face, and so the alphabet kept having new births. So now we have oo, oot. So you had to see that oo as a unit. Ow, cow, oi, boy. Short O has that roachy bug on hers. Ook. And aw is very bashful. All, mall. Okay, and then the R's have 100 different sounds. They don't really have 100 different sounds, but they have lots of different sounds. Arlene controls everyone, including the vowels. They must include her sound. She's the most controlling letter of the alphabet. She's fierce. So there's R. She's a consonant, okay? And she makes that, you can see her teeth. She's very fierce. So you have to put your teeth in that sort of growling position, and your tongue has to be up to get that good R. They're also very good for articulation therapy. So if kids have poor R's and S's, etc., phonic faces give them lots of great cues. Okay, run, rat. Her twin sister is Erlene, so she's the tiger sound. She has the tiger stripes in her hair, and she's the vowel. She says and you can spell it with IR, UR, or ER. You can see that the tongue positions of the IR and the bottom corners of the picture can slide right up into the same tongue position as the ER is already placed. So IR and UR and ER are all going to say the tiger sound, Erlene's sound, as opposed to Arlene's sound for the consonant R. And then Arlene can wear her pirate costume, R, in AR words, or she can use her OR in OR words. When you have Arlene in a structure like silent E, so if we had AR silent E in a word like bear, B-A-R-E, then you have to apply that silent E and come up with the long vowel sound. Bear. So when there are phonic rules, the phonic rule applies first. The silent E gets applied to bring in the grown-up. And then you add Arlene to control that grown-up. Air. This is the two vowel, like this would be a word like fear, F-E-A-R. The two vowel rule applies first, so that brings in the grown-up, and then you have the R control fear. And if you look at the word fire as the final choice over here, it's the same thing. The silent E brings in the I, grown-up I sound for fire, and then you pronounce it ire. Okay, so any vowel combinations, any vowel rules, if a R follows the vowel, it's going to be controlled by Arlene, and it's going to, make an R-colored or an R-controlled sound. All right, and as we talked about, they're also great for teaching speech sounds. When I'm teaching speech sounds, I also try to teach phonics at the same time. So we try to make that initial S sound. You can see in these pictures that this S looks like your tongue position. So it's not a letter S exactly, it's a distortion of a letter S, but it basically is designed to show the tongue position of where your tongue should curl right behind that alveolar ridge. And so the kids are to learn words that have the short vowel sound in them. This is another example on the right where they use the phonic face to figure out how to read the words. Then they read the words in sentences and try to remember to use their correct articulation sound every time they see an R. And then they go down to the picture and spontaneously talk about the picture, also trying to maintain the correct R sound. Okay, so conclusion. Phonic faces can be used as a tool whenever students need to learn to represent sounds. I showed you several ways that I use them, but I'm sure you can think of lots and lots of ways that you can use them in your classroom or in your practice with kids. Thank you. Oh, look for them at elementary.com on the web.